This horror film is the first sequel in the long-running gory franchise that critics actually like. Yes, we are talking about the 10th installment of Saw. It's rare for 10th installments in a successful franchise to correct for the sins of previous films, but it feels like the failure of Spiral from the Book of Saw sent the people behind this money-making machine back to the drawing board, resulting in the best Saw sequel in years. Saw X solves a lot of the problems of other films in this franchise by limiting its scope, eliminating some, but not all, of the incoherent plotting, coming up with a few ingenious traps, and really centering the keys to this franchise. Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith. They're both better here than in any other film in the series, bringing these characters back to life in a way that feels more emotionally resonant than most of the string-pulling they've done in past movies. And the punishments seem to fit the crimes here a little better than some of the previous chapters, in which it sometimes felt like the Jigsaw Killer was going to extremes to punish people who might have just had a bad day, or didn't call their grandma enough. The decision to kill the series' Big Bad Jigsaw in Saw 3 was fitting given the franchise's obsession with cattle prod shock value, but it also left the makers in a trap they then struggled to escape. Ensuing sequels were flashback-heavy, filling in an increasingly convoluted backstory, making each new Saw film feel more like a daytime soap opera. In an attempt to swerve away from a timeline that even the most devoted Saw fan would struggle to explain, 2021's Chris Rock-led Spiral tried to spin the story off into a detective thriller with a different villain. Still, it was an embarrassingly junky disaster, a new low for a series that was already in the gutter. And now Saw X starts as something more akin to a drama, for better and worse, as Kramer deals with his terminal cancer diagnosis, a mere matter of months left. When he hears about a radical new treatment, he finds a new well of hope, flying to Mexico City buoyed up by the promise of a cure. But once his procedure is over, Kramer discovers that it was all a cruel scam and vows to teach the fraudsters an unforgettable lesson. It's an interesting way back into the series, and while the latter sequels had become vaguer and often pettier about why subjects were being tested, there's a much clearer plan here, and given how abhorrent the con is, a stronger dramatic pull. The relative lack of horror in the first half, bar a finger-breaking, eye-sucking dream sequence, might be a test for some, but it's strangely more magnetic than the mayhem that comes after. Bell, a more careful and studied actor than his most closely associated role has pigeonholed him as. When the traps begin, they're as gnarly as ever, if not gnarlier, and with very little suspense about the outcome given how they tend to end, we're reminded of what a Saw film is, a juvenile endurance test. Some of the better sequels, which never came close to matching the original's twisty charm, found a way to embed them within a diverting enough game, stuffed with deranged twists. But once the trap has been set here, there's very little meat among all that blood. The setups for previous Saw films have often been messy and difficult to follow, but this one is refreshingly simple in that we watch these people do something horrible to John Kramer, and then he locks them in a room to play his games. And fan-favorite Amanda is there to help things get appropriately nasty with a few of Jigsaw's most elaborate devices. Before you know it, someone is using an intestine as a rope, and another victim is performing brain surgery on themselves. At least the first few traps have a clever synergy in that the people who faked surgery now have to actually do it. All of the traps are more interestingly designed and executed than most of the sequels. But what really makes the bulk of Saw X effective is how openly Kramer and Amanda are involved in the action. There's significantly less man-behind-the-curtain action, as Kramer makes his motives and the stakes clear, two things that have often been muddled in this franchise. And that choice allows Bell to really dig into the role with more screen time than ever, somehow making John Kramer sympathetic while he's torturing people. Amanda doesn't have quite as much to do, but she sells a few nice beats because she understands this franchise and what it needs to work. That was the problem with so many recent Saw installments. They got away from what worked by being cluttered with characters that no one cared about learning lessons that seemed kind of poorly taught. It's impossible to say that Saw X goes back to the basics because that would involve just two people in a room with an actual saw, but there's something more grounded about this film than any of the other sequels. Saw X returns John Kramer to the root of his mission, showing people the error of their ways and asking them what it truly means to be alive. A few severed limbs along the way are just a bonus. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into Saw X. If you agreed with our take or think we missed something, please let us know in the comments below. Remember to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss out on our future movie reviews and discussions.